Welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast. My name is Anthony Oliver, and in today's podcast we will be expanding our minds to hear some of the very latest thinking around how the infrastructure sector is set to continue accelerating this journey towards digitisation, embracing the use of data and building its so-called infrastructure intelligence. The podcast is being recorded today in Singapore, the 2023 Bentley Systems Year in Infrastructure event at the very impressive Marina Bay Sands hotel. It is indeed a great place to come to be inspired and energised by the opportunities and achievements that technology has to offer this built environment sector. And given Singapore's 50-year infrastructure strategy, it's a great place to be inspired about how to plan and deliver nationally significant investment. Because the future of our built environment really does depend on doing more with less and on achieving better economic and social outcomes for communities. And that means creating new sustainable solutions that both protect our natural environment but also meet global targets for cutting carbon emissions. To achieve these goals, the architecture, engineering, and construction sector needs to use the power of AI and data analysis tools to make better decisions and deliver the vital outcomes needed today to change the world for a better tomorrow. It is a massive challenge. It's therefore my pleasure to welcome Greg Bentley, Chief Executive Officer at Bentley Systems, the man who for the last 3.5 decades or more has truly been on a mission, as he might put it, to help the infrastructure sector to go digital and transform the outcomes delivered to communities around the world. So Greg, welcome to the Infrastructure Podcast.
Anthony, thank you. Cheers.
Right, we're back in Singapore for the Year in Infrastructure, which I think is a celebration of the projects around the world that are leading the way towards full digitisation. It's an event that you've said is one of your annual highlights. What makes it so special?
Well, it's special to be in Singapore after not having been here for several years because of the not only the quality of infrastructure, but the quality of going digital for infrastructure here in Singapore, and we'll probably talk about some of that. My favorite part of the Year in Infrastructure event is the Meet the Finalists aspect of it. And I study most of the finalist presentations, so I have questions for them, and I had a chance yesterday to learn more. The answers to my questions always result in my being even more impressed by the projects. So that's very stimulating and gratifying and is my favorite.
And they're from all around the world, of course, aren't they?
This year, out of the 36 finalists, 19 are from Asia, 7 from China. So the majority from Asia, as we're sitting here in Southeast Asia, outside China, which is, I think, really impressive.
Yeah. Singapore, of course, is one part of the world that's really embraced the use of BIM and the use of data across the asset lifecycle. How have they achieved it? And are they still out there leading the world?
When you use the qualifier across the asset lifecycle, I think so. Because across the asset lifecycle depends on the appetite and the ambition of the owner-operators. And only in Singapore do you have, I think, whether it's government stability and so forth, you have the time horizon, I think you mentioned 50-year plan, whatever. Yeah. If you are thinking about your infrastructure across decades, then going digital, as we say, infrastructure intelligence, plans and strategies to gain ever-compounding value from the engineering data that it's associated with the characteristics here in Singapore, and it does make a difference. Yeah. And more of the data works harder, as it should, here in Singapore than anywhere in the world. It should work as hard elsewhere, and we hope that'll come about, but maybe one way it comes about is to bring people here to Singapore, as we're doing this week, and see what the difference that makes.
Well, I've lost track of how many Year in Infrastructure events you've hosted. Maybe it's probably more than 10, I imagine. But over those times, you've seen a huge amount of change, I imagine. But it's not just, and the point you made there about it's not just about speeding up. I suppose, as Keith Bentley originally said, it was about producing drawings faster. It's moved now to actually delivering value across the whole life cycle of assets. Is that really what's changed about digital engineering recently?
I think so. When we say infrastructure engineering isn't limited to CapEx, and if I step back across the period of time you're describing and talk about changes at Bentley Systems, well, here we're introducing industry solutions. Last year we had industry solutions that were new for dams and bridges, our first two, and now we have 8, I think, altogether. All of them include monitoring, IoT, asset operations. They don't fail to include the CapEx aspect for each of the asset types, but for us, solution requires an asset lifecycle solution, and we have more focus all the time on owner-operators. It's 50% of our business directly with the owner-operators.
Right.
But all of the value potential is for owner-operators and their constituents, and I think that's kind of natural and a welcome outcome at this point.
Yeah, because, of course, a lot of the value, or the majority of the value, is in that actual operation and maintenance aspect of an asset's life.
I think so. Yeah. All of the value occurs during operations and maintenance. CapEx is the cost.
Yeah. Notwithstanding the fact that we have to make sure that we're efficient and we build things to the right price to start with. That's always a good place to start.
Well, we're going to. I'm sure we'll talk about asset lifecycle opportunities. I don't want to fail to say that Singapore is a place where CapEx has been reinvented also. But again, it's the ambition of the owner-operators, and we talk about the Tuas water reclamation plant.
Right, yeah.
has won so many Going Digital awards during project delivery. At this point, it's in construction, and we have this year submissions by the contractors, which are kind of new for us, who are giving credit to the success on the project, to the digital twins they had from the design process, and 4D modeling, which has become the norm, I think, in Singapore. So Singapore has made great strides in CapEx also, but the OpEx progress is even more distinctive.
Yeah. This year, your keynote theme is around the need to move towards infrastructure intelligence. How are you defining this infrastructure intelligence?
The data working harder and generating compounding value. And the reason that's top of mind, who isn't in the world marveling at generative AI and, for instance, language models? You then understand that existing data has a whole new dimension of potential value for training machine learning. And that's true here as well. But we say, yeah, that's another source of compounding value from infrastructure engineering data. But there are other strategies, and we're talking about those here as well, that even before generative AI potential compound the value of engineering data, and they are all infrastructure intelligence strategies.
So you call them the building blocks that you actually build on top of the data, or that you use to actually access the value from that data?
Well, I've said that this year for us is a groundbreaking year in infrastructure intelligence. If we think of groundbreaking, we can say data is the foundation, but digital twins are the building blocks, but it's infrastructure intelligence is the way to describe the strategies to glean the value from the data through the digital twins.
Okay. One of the other things that you have said about the power of technology, obviously reducing costs across the life cycle, but also to backfill the growing shortage of skills. That's a key element of technology for you as well.
It is, and this is the first year where in our Going Digital Awards we've asked the submitters to quantify their engineering savings, and where we could calculate that for the finalists, and I realize that's the best projects, but it's a median of 18%.
Right.
And that's really significant in its potential to help cope with the engineering resource capacity gap in the world now, where for every 10 infrastructure engineering jobs, there's a job opening.
Yeah.
So what are we going to do about that? Going digital, and our finalists here have obviously terrific digital advancements to advocate and learn from.
Yeah, I mean, I think you talked about the phrase is compounding the potential, the compounding potential of artificial intelligence. I mean, I was at a data summit last week, and they described the potential of AI as being an enabler, removing the drudgery to allow professionals to really focus on creativity. I mean, is that how you see the potential?
Well, and that includes engineering professionals. So we actually have instances and experience of that in Bentley Systems. And no, I don't mean generative AI yet helping. That's to come in infrastructure engineering. But in software engineering, our folks have been using for most of the year the GitHub Copilot.
Right.
And it has indeed had exactly that result. There, if you think of a software developer's job in software engineering, I'm sorry, you have to do a lot of test case generation and documentation generation and so forth. A lot of that work and routine coding can be done and is being done now in Bentley Systems by the Copilot. And that has made not only the engineers more productive, and that would be an obvious advantage when we have an engineering resource capacity gap, but has made them enjoy their job more, has made the job a better job with less of this, as you say, rote drudgery. And let's hope that that can, as applied now to infrastructure engineering, because we are confident we can achieve the same as I've just described for software engineering, we can achieve it in infrastructure engineering. We're just at the beginning of that now, but that can help us hopefully attract future engineers and help in that respect to address the capacity gap.
But I suppose in order to do that, you have to also embrace what you describe as data centricity, which is the concept of leveraging digital capabilities as essential to driving forward infrastructure intelligence. How would you describe data centricity?
Well, data centricity would be a prerequisite. We have to open up the dark data. My way of describing it is digital components. They need to be digital components that can be reused, especially. And if machines are going to learn from engineering data in particular, it needs to be aligned and queryable and semantically organized and so forth. Our Bentley Infrastructure Cloud can do that. Our schema helps, and we change manage and so forth. So we think data centricity sets you up for this compounding benefit from generative AI. Now, there's many other benefits not requiring generative AI that this has been a groundbreaking year to take note of those as well. As we might discuss.
But I like this concept of the dark data. The dark data is the stuff which is really useful that you perhaps don't know about, you can't access.
Well, the dark data is all of the work in modeling and simulation, unless it's in our iTwin platform. And you might say, Greg, that sounds like a very sweeping statement. Well, if the files that are delivered by civil and structural geotechnical engineers and so forth, we would know when they're used because you have to use our applications to open them.
Right.
And it tends to be never after the project is finished.
Yeah.
So that's dark data. And opening it up has a lot to gain and improve over the asset lifecycle. I know we're going to be talking about infrastructure intelligence benefiting asset life cycles, and Singapore is a great case in point of that. But the other dimension with generative AI is to use those digital components on other projects. And if you ask me about my favorite project here in the Going Digital Awards, it's the Hyundai project where they faced retirements in their plant structure designing group. And then they counted and realized they had 1,680 designs of big pipe rack structures. I mean 100 feet long, 40 feet wide. These are huge projects. And yet they had new projects coming along requiring, guess what, pipe rack structures. And they never reused anything.
Right.
And I say this, Anthony, imagine you were the junior engineer and you get told, oh, here comes a project, you go look through the 1,680 that we've already done and find what we ought to use as a starting point for this new one, no one would ever stick around to do that job. Machines don't care. So at Hyundai, they happen to have a supercomputers. They assigned to the structural team a data scientist. I learned this at the Meet the Finalists day, where I went to ask them. A fellow from Korea had an interpreter, and we covered all of this. So they used 3 different kinds of AI, not generative AI in this case, they classified all the projects they had done on various dimensions of capacities and purposes and so forth. They worked out that they could generate 27 million potential cases that they could prepare for, and they used 3 different kinds of AI so that when a new project requirement would come along, the AI solution with 3 different types of AI would recommend which of the existing designs, sets of digital components, could be reused so that there was not the drudgery of starting from scratch.
And they've revealed this from the data that was dark before, because it wasn't actually accessible.
And it was made accessible. It's in ProjectWise, so it's accessible. But AI has helped to classify and understand it and recommend it.
The great thing about being here is that you do get to go and get up close in person with these projects. I've just spent some time with the guys from the new Everton Stadium in Liverpool in the UK, and that's a project which has embraced digital systems and data from day one to transform the way it constructs the project, and I think it will also transform the way that it actually maintains and operates throughout their life cycle. But it's the use of these modern tools to deliver modern methods of construction. I mean, is that for you success in terms of going digital?
Well, modularization and design for manufacturing and off-site fabrication, on-site assembly is a case in point of reuse of digital components. And when you do things that way, the construction, the 4D modeling, construction simulation becomes of the essence. And yes, we need to further industrialize for project economics, infrastructure engineering. It's another way of reusing existing data, in this case modules, that understand themselves. And I commend Lang O'Rourke on that Everton project. And of course, we would say there's only one Lang O'Rourke who has worked so hard on DFMA, on design for manufacturing, and they deserve their returns on it.
But of course, the next step, and I think one of the issues that we've also been talking about this week is actually, and we've been talking earlier, is taking that digital from day one and pushing it into the life cycle of the project. You attempted to do it on the Crossrail project in London, and it's difficult. It's difficult to get that data to be used in the operation and maintenance phases of projects.
It is if you're not in Singapore. In Singapore, and Anthony, my way of putting this is Crossrail and other frustrations that what technology could do is not what was done when it came to operations and maintenance. And generally, we say there's an advancement gap between what tools can do and what data should do and what's actually achieved. In Singapore, there's no advancement gap, or maybe it's negative, because owner-operators, I think it's because they had this long time frame in Singapore. They're planning for decades, so it matters much more to have the data continue to work. So the modeling and simulation results from design are not expected to be dark data. They're expected to be data helping, and the particular examples I'm thinking of here in Singapore, optimize maintenance decisions, for instance. And it's not that they're extravagant in Singapore. When they're focusing on infrastructure intelligence and reuse of data, it's, by the way, so that they can spend less on maintenance and still have better reliability. So the digital twin that brings together the ET that I'm talking about, opening up that modeling and simulation data, and the IT, the sensor inputs, and then, or that would be the OT, and then the IT, the maintenance history, and assessing the benefit of the maintenance and so forth. That is a digital twin that doesn't have to cost anything, because it's actually saving unnecessary or unwarranted maintenance. And that's the approach here in Singapore.
As you say, there's a lot to learn here. Let's talk a bit about you. You joined your four brothers to run Bentley Systems back in 1991. Let's flash.
Who's counting? Anthony's counting. Okay.
Having already, of course, by that time founded a successful financial trading software firm, what have you learnt about software business over the last 4 decades?
Well, when I first came to engineering software with the brothers, having been in financial software, I said, this emperor has no clothes. Here we are designing things with fancy graphics, but there's no understanding of what the fancy graphics stand for. There's no substantive semantics behind it. And we've come a long way, but it's 34 years, as you point out, or whatever is the number. And we're really hitting our stride now, I think, with digital component reuse, again, as that example. But the software, and so, of course, with this engineering resource capacity gap, going digital is of the essence in infrastructure engineering especially, but the software business has also become a better business over that period of time. Certainly, vertical software is so appealing because our people at Bentley Systems love to learn, and there's always something more to learn in a domain like infrastructure engineering, and it certainly keeps me interested.
Well, no, but in many ways, I suppose, your business has been accelerating, what would you say, faster than the industry has been able to catch up or keep up?
Except in Singapore. In Singapore, they want more. That's a good thing. We're glad to be here.
Change, of course, is something which continues within the Bentley Systems business. Your first software business, I think, went public in 91. And after 30 years, an independent family-owned firm, Bentley, floated in September 2020 on the NASDAQ. What's changed about the business since that flotation?
I would answer this way, that now that we have public investors, I feel an obligation to do better at the things that we didn't prioritize necessarily, that were opportunities for us, but we could put them off because we were interested in other things. So one example is marketing, by the way, that we have a competitor that's better at marketing. I'd rather be better at engineering, but we can work at doing both at the same time, and we have more so since going public. And the other is focusing on engineers who work in SMB and smaller businesses, and we didn't pursue that very much so, and we're attending to it now, and quite getting very good reinforcement from focusing on engineers in every size of a firm.
You've also got a chief sustainability officer now as well, which I imagine is driven by investors' need to really embrace ESG goals.
No, I don't think it's driven for investors, although we do the mandatory ESG reporting. It is that infrastructure engineers, including all of our people at Bentley Systems, are zealous about, and the way we put it is ESDG, Empowering Sustainable Development Goals, and it's just a very sincere, it's not only an opportunity that depends on, as you mentioned, decarbonizing and so forth, it's also adaptation for that and resilience in the meantime. That's the work of civil and structural and geotechnical engineers, but they're zealous and committed to it, and so are we.
Yeah. You've got an MBA in Finance and Decision Sciences from Wharton. You're a trustee at Drexel University. Given the way the infrastructure business is becoming so data-driven, is training for infrastructure professionals up to the needs of the sector today?
We should say the needs tomorrow, I suppose. Okay. It's not worth changing the system for what the needs have been. Let's anticipate what they will be. And I don't want to overstate the hype, but generative AI has a bearing on that, being able to automate a lot of what's routine. And I think seriously that we actually believe that being a software engineer will be yet more attractive with a co-pilot. And we don't think it's too far to stretch to say infrastructure engineering can become a more attractive yet a more attractive profession, not only because infrastructure engineers are working on things that are important, but also they'll be able to be more creative more of the time in the way that they do things with a lot of being automated, including drawing generation and so forth. So that can help attract future engineers as well.
I mean, you're immensely busy still. You're immensely passionate about the business. I thought that maybe the flotation would have been an opportunity for you to slow down, Greg. Any chance of that?
Well, at Bentley Systems now, we have an excellent chief operating officer, Nicholas Cummins, and I am focusing my time on investor relations at this point. Happens that I don't actually mind that. I kind of like that. The other 4 younger brothers by now have retired. We say Keith has retired. He's not here this year. He's quite energized with his co-pilot and.
Well, he still makes it into your keynote address as being a guy who's doing an awful lot of stuff. Are you still playing tennis?
Yes.
Good. That's good to
hear.
How
about you, Anthony?
I
That's a yes.
Every now and again, yes. Every now and more cycling now, but bad knee. Let's talk about open data before we close. Software companies can be, rightly perhaps, accused of locking businesses into their products by failing to truly embrace interoperability, upwards and downwards compatibility. Is this changing? Is it changing fast enough?
Well, interoperability and openness is good business, especially for us at Bentley Systems. So in the iTwin platform, in our schemas, we have connectors for everybody's applications, not only ours. And the iTwin experience, as you've seen it, is the place to federate this data together, no matter where it came from. So we are believers. We're not doing that out of altruism, but because it's a great competitive advantage for us.
Right. Well, because I was talking to Patrick McLeamy at Building Smart a few weeks ago, and in fact he was on the podcast. We were talking about the need to press forward with open BIM and open standards. It's not there yet. Well, we're not quite there yet.
Well, if we're never going to be there with open standards, then let's not wait to get there. It seems to me. It's not that there's anything wrong with open standards, but with computers spending most of their time idle and software architectures getting so much better, shouldn't we make data self-describe so that it can work in various schemas and is not limited to whatever constraints there may be in an open standard? So I'm not discouraging the work of open BIM. I'm just saying let's not count on it when there may be technical solutions to openness.
Okay. Really exciting things happening. You've recently committed $100 million, I think, of venture funding to accelerate the infrastructure of digital twins with the iTwin Ventures. What's that all about, and why is it so important?
Well, we think that digital twins create lots of opportunities in the world for not pure software, by the way, and there could be attractive investment opportunities there. I will say that there's also a different investment environment now, and we don't mind being opportunistic. Instead of lots of small venture capital, literally corporate venture capital investments, we've recently done an acquisition last month, Blyncsy, in the asset analytics area. Right. And that's a case where we acquired the whole company outright. But favorable economics is now prevailing where venture capital investments are less compelling at the very moment.
Yeah. And I suppose the other thing which is really on display here in Singapore is the iLab, which is this immersive tool really that you can use.
Well, we're going to have that in London in our new premises, Anthony, and we'll show various things there. I always like to remember myself that there will always be, every year, a new, better, different last mile of immersive experience available. But it's the content, the data is king, data centricity, and the iTwin experience is going to be able to federate, semantically align, change manage the digital twin data, bring together the ET, IT, OT, and whatever is your preferred VR, XR environment of the moment, we'll be taking advantage of it.
So your message to the infrastructure sector is to keep going, keep investing, and keep really positive about this whole digital environment.
Expect more from going digital, expect more from your data. Expect your data to continue to have compounding value. That's what generative AI reminds us, that we didn't have to know, we couldn't have known where the value would come from our data. We need to be stewarding it and aligning it and opening it up, and we'll always be finding new and better uses for it, especially over asset life cycles, as long as we're concerned about here in Singapore.
Greg, thanks so much. It's always a pleasure to talk to you. It's always a pleasure to dip into what's going on in your mind. So thanks for joining me today on the Infrastructure Podcast.
Cheers, Anthony.
Thank you very much. Thanks, Greg. That's all we've got time for today. We've got more from the Infrastructure Podcast in the pipeline and more guests to talk to as we continue to probe the big issues faced across the sector. If you haven't done so already, do check out the Infrastructure Podcast website, www.infrastructure-podcast.com, where you'll find backgrounds to everything we talked about today, but you'll also find lots of other podcasts to listen to and to share. So thanks for joining us. Thanks again to Greg. I look forward to seeing you again very soon.